So I want to talk a little bit about the last, we'll call it 5 years, right? Which is, you've been part of brands that are in pretty aggressive kind of hyper growth phases of their existence. So when you are at a brand that's growing, call it 50 to 100% year over year, what's different about that versus your days? I would assume that Sephora wasn't growing at that rate and L'Oréal wasn't growing at that rate while you were there. What have you noticed in terms of challenges, differences, approaches that have made you successful in those environments?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'd say when you're at a big place like a long home at a L'Oreal, the game is so different because it's all about market share and keeping your market share and keeping your leadership role. And the increments that you can do that in are smaller because you're already so big. If you're $1 billion brand in the US or a $3 billion brand, your focus is a little different because now you really have to make sure that you're expanding a consumer base that's already so big.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
when you're a small brand, it's so much harder to prioritize because everything is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think the most important thing in your early phases is really understanding what are the things that are going to have the biggest impact right now, while having a vision to what you want the brand to look like in the next 3 years. And so I think you're constantly trying to think short-term, long-term, long-term, because otherwise you could just drown in every opportunity. Because small brands also have everyone coming your way, right? Like, do you want to do this partnership? Do you want to do this giveaway? Do you want to launch this retailer? And I think it's so important to really know what you stand for, where you want to go, and what your roadmap is to get there. And then, of course, be flexible that if TikTok explodes, you can go jump on TikTok, and that you're not only thinking about the future, but that you're ready to do the short term. And so I think that, and then that foundational piece, I think that pausing to say, do you know what your brand DNA is? Do you know what your values are? Do you know what your product strategy is? Do you know what your pricing strategy is? I think a lot of small brands are running so fast that they're sort of on a hamster wheel. And I think the brands that are really smart sort of pause, get that executive team in, have those conversations, and maybe miss a beat for a few months, but can really propel you, I think, for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to condense that into a single word, I think I'd say it'd be focus, right? Like the ability to take in all of these disparate opportunities and pick the ones that are the most important and the most aligned with what your kind of mission, vision, product, et cetera is. We certainly have gone through phases of that as well. I think when we first started, we would just grabbing everything that was coming your way, right? Because you transition from this, nobody's paying attention to us at all, right? I don't think you haven't been at that phase, which is like nobody gives a shit about you phase, which is like you start, nobody gives a shit. Like anything you do, there are no opportunities, nothing coming your way. And then you start growing very, very quickly. And it's like, oh my God, I've never had this before. Like I want everything. And it's hard to kind of take all that in and turn things down, right? And so, but it was super, super critical part of our story. So what are the types of things that you've had to turn down? Like what are the things that you've looked at either at Tatcha or at Kosas that you were like, hey, I know this looks like a really big opportunity, but we're not gonna pursue it right now.
I think that it happens in every part of the business. I'd say product is one. It's an area where you could see a trend. You might have a formula that could easily jump on it, but maybe it's gonna be too close to a product you already have in your portfolio. Maybe you just don't have the resources to support that much. Maybe there's no room on your unit in store. And you just have to say, maybe Sephora wants us to do it, but we know we have something better coming in 6 months, and we're gonna make sure we do it right, and we promise it's still gonna be right. And so I think that's one thing. I think distribution is a piece. There's certainly, we get retailer calls every single week, from small to big. And we are in an exclusivity agreement with Sephora, but we, before that, there was certainly, you could say, oh, I'm going to do these 50 retailers instead of go exclusive with Sephora, because it seems like it's more, but that at the end of the day, that focus on Sephora is so powerful, if that's your target audience, which it is for us. And Tatcha was the same thing. You know, we were very, very focused on our distribution, in our international strategy in the early days, and our product pipeline was really tight. And so I think those are the big areas. And then I'd say in marketing, you know, there's a temptation to just do every single partnership that comes up in or sponsorship or an event, and some of them are so great. But I always, you know, our team is so small. And so it's really a matter of, do you think that's going to drive exactly what we think the goals are right now, or do we pass, maintain the relationship, and do it later? So I think we're making those decisions every single day. They're not easy though.
Yeah, the part of the equation that I don't have as much visibility into is the retail side of things, which is like, you know, obviously having Sephora on your side is a really big deal, right? But at the same time, you know, there are other players out there that, you know, like Ulta probably wouldn't be a terrible distribution partner for you guys, right? So, and I'm not going to put you on the spot and make you comment on that, but you know, that's a big decision to make that, right? To become exclusive with anybody.